Hello, everyone. This is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for May the 4th, 2026. It is the time of the week where we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. My name is Tim, and I am sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. CircuitPython is a version of Python that is designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. The development for CircuitPython is primarily sponsored by Adafruit, so if you would like to help support Adafruit and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from them at adafruit.com. This meeting gets hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join anytime by going to adafru.it/discord. We hold a meeting in the CircuitPython dev text channel as well as the CircuitPython voice channel. The meeting typically happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time, except when that coincides with the U.S. holiday. In the notes doc, there is a link to a calendar which you can view online or add to your favorite calendar app. And we will send notifications about upcoming changes to the schedule via Discord to the CircuitPythonistas role, which is the same role you need in order to speak during the meeting. So if you'd like to participate, you can ask to be added to that role. That will allow you to speak during the meeting if you'd like, and it will also get you notified anytime that we change the day to Tuesday or skip a week on some occasions as well. There is a shared notes document, like mentioned before, that accompanies the meeting and recording. You can contribute to that document beforehand. The final notes document includes timestamps to go along with the video, so you can use that doc to skip around and view the parts of the video that interest you most. The meeting tends to run 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how many people we have. After each meeting, we'll put the link for the next meeting's notes doc in the CircuitPython dev channel on Discord. You can always check the pinned messages there throughout the week in that CircuitPython dev channel to find the latest notes doc. You can add hug reports and status updates or in the weeds topics to that document anytime throughout the week as well. You don't have to wait until Mondays specifically to do it. So you can always just grab it from the pin there and throw in hug reports or status updates. The meeting structure. Meeting is held in 5 parts. First part will be community news. We'll take a look at all things CircuitPython and Python on hardware. Chosen set of items from the microcontroller news, from the Python on microcontrollers newsletter. Then we will get into the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, in Blinka. That one is a quantitative overview of the entire project. A chance to look at the project by the numbers, separate from our status updates. Next up is hug reports. That is the first of our 2 round robin sections. Hug Reports is an opportunity to highlight the good things folks are doing. We can take a moment to recognize awesome folks in our community. Next up is Status Updates section. That is the second round robin. That one is an opportunity to report on what you've been up to. We will go around the room, so to speak. We'll take a couple of minutes to talk about what we've been working on in the past week and what we'll be up to over the next week until the next meeting. The 5th and final part is In the Weeds. In the Weeds is an opportunity for more long-form discussions. Those can either come out of topics that started in status updates, or they can be identified ahead of time and noted in the document under the In the Weeds section as something to discuss further once we reach that section of the meeting. So that covers how the meeting will go. Next up, we will get into community news. I will take the first timestamp here and one for this as well. First news item this week is CircuitPython 10.3.0 Alpha 1 was released. And I should mention as well, all these items come from the newsletter, which I will give you more details on following the actual news item. So first item again, CircuitPython 10.3.0 Alpha 1. This was released, this is the first alpha release for the 10.3.0 branch. Further features, changes, and bug fixes will be added before the final release of 10.3.0. There are links here to the Adafruit blog as well as the GitHub release notes. A couple of quick highlights of this release are improved SD card USB presentation on Macs, prefer foo.py over the foo directory package when importing, which matches the behavior of CPython, some pin fixes, and in the Zephyr port, a couple of new core modules, GIF.io and storage, have been enabled in this version. Next up is malicious Python package poses a new supply chain threat. This one is maybe one of the less fun news items, but I wanted to throw it in there to help get the word out and to just kind of warn people broadly about this sort of thing, which is unfortunately happening a bit more common as time goes on. So the open source package Elementary Data has over 1 million downloads per month, and it was compromised. Attackers exploited a vulnerability in GitHub Actions workflow to steal signing keys and publish a malicious version. Users of version 0.23.3 of the Elementary Data Python library are advised to rotate their credentials immediately. This will be a familiar phenomenon to developers by now. Open source projects are a popular delivery mechanism for malware. Yes, like I said, unfortunately, the occurrences of these continue to rise over time. So NPM, the Node.js repository in Python, have had a bunch of these. I imagine there are others as well. There is a link here to TechZine, and just consider this a warning to kind of keep on your toes. Watch out what you're installing. Next up, we have Project of the Week, the AIS Ship Tracker. This one is by Jeff Gillow, was posted on the Adafruit forums. They posted a real-time maritime vessel tracking system built on the Raspberry Pi 5. It displays live ship traffic in the English channel on a 64 by 64 RGB LED matrix panel. The vessels are color-coded by type, positioned on a geographic map with coastline referenced, and they're identified by a scrolling ticker with type codes, destination speed, headings, and navigation status. There are links here to the Adafruit forums as well as the GitHub for this project, and it's a super cool project, so check that one out. There is an image of that matrix in the notes doc if you'd like to see it. Next up, community member Toddbot made this serial plotster. Serial Plotster is a cross-platform desktop serial plotter built with Tari 2. It graphs line-oriented numeric data from a serial port as a real-time strip chart. It has scrub and zoom that does not pause the data collection, plus a console pane for bidirectional communication with the device. And there are links here to the GitHub for the project, as well as Blue Sky post where Toddbot was talking about it. All right, so all of these items have come from the Python on Microcontrollers weekly newsletter, which is a CircuitPython community-run newsletter that gets emailed out every Monday. Hug report to Anne for putting that together for us. The complete archives are available at adafruitdaily.com. It highlights the latest Python on hardware-related news from around the web, including CircuitPython, Python, and MicroPython developments. Right. If you'd like to contribute news or projects of your own, you can email them to cpnews@adafruit.com. We always appreciate contributions. So next up, we will get into the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. And I will scroll just a minute here. There we are. So this section is a quantitative overview of the entire project. It gives us a chance to look at the health of the project separate from our status updates. We'll talk about stats that cover the project overall, and then we'll separately discuss the core, the libraries, and Blinka. So first up, the overall section. I will take a timestamp and read that one to you. So overall this week, relatively slow week. We had 3 pull requests merged by 4 different authors. Thanks to Scott, Mikey Sklar, and Andy Bing authoring PRs this week, and 2 reviewers. Thanks to Dan and Scott for doing the reviews this week. Issues-wise, 1 issue was closed by 1 person. 2 new issues were opened up by 2 people. Next up, I will pass it over to Scott if you are available to tell us about the core.
I am, and it looks like I was never muted, so sorry about that. Yes, so for the core, we had 3 pull requests merged from 4 different authors. WebLate is a bot, so it's actually only 3. But thanks to Andy Bing and Mikey Sklar, who are infrequent contributors. We had 2 reviewers, Dan and myself. We have 20 open pull requests, so we've closed a few of them, which is great. So we're comfortably under our goal of staying on a single page, which is 25. Issues-wise, we had 1 closed issue by 1 person, 2 open by 2 people, so we're up 1 for 861 open issues. We track the prioritization of that work for us Adafruit-funded folks via milestones. Our current stable release is 10.2, and the 10.2x, which are bugs to fix soon, we have 3 open issues. We have 116 open issues on 10xx, which is kind of our we should probably do it soon, but no firm plans to do it. And then we have 0 issues not assigned to milestones. So we are keeping up with the incoming issues and triaging them as they come in. So doing pretty good, keeping up.
All right, thank you, Scott. Next up is the section for libraries. I will tell you about that one. This covers all of the Python level libraries. They are hosted on GitHub and they're split up into 2 different main bundles. The Adafruit library bundle currently has 393 libraries in it. The community library bundle currently has 176 libraries in it for a total of 569 libraries altogether that support various hardware things and helper APIs and stuff that you can use on your CircuitPython devices. It was a very slow week in library land this week. We had no pull requests merged, no authors, no reviewers, of course. There are currently 35 pull requests that remain open. The oldest one of those is a draft that's at 1,355 days. The newest one is actually 9 days old, so you can tell it's been a slow week. We didn't even have any new PRs submitted this week. Issues-wise, slow as well. No issues closed, no issues open, leaving us with 773 open issues currently, and there are 2 of those that are labeled as good first issues. You can find those 2 as well as the rest listed over at circuitpython.org/contributing, which is a website where you should head if you are interested in getting involved in the CircuitPython project. Usually the first thing we point people towards who want to get involved but don't have a specific idea of something they want to work on is reviewing open PRs. That's a good place to start. So that is the first thing you see when you load up that page. Again, it's circuitpython.org/contributing. You will see a list of open PRs. Those are links over to GitHub. And those are waiting for a person to come along, look at the changes, and then leave a comment on GitHub letting us know what they found when they looked it over. You would want to look it over for things like logic, spelling, syntax, anything like that. If you have the hardware for that particular PR, whatever library it's for, you could test it out on hardware as well, and then include that information in your comment on GitHub. Did it work? Did it not work? Did you run into any errors? What versions of CircuitPython did you use? All that good stuff. If you get comfortable reviewing PRs, going through that process, leaving comments on GitHub, and you'd like to join our official review team there on GitHub, we can work with you to add you to that. If you would like to start submitting some of your own code, you can also do that from the same page. If you click the issues link at the top in the navigation, you will see a similar looking page, a list of links that go over to GitHub, but these ones represent issues instead of pull requests. They don't have any proposed change put in yet. They are waiting this time for a person who wants to come along and actually code up whatever that change would be. Maybe it's fixing a bug or adding a feature, adding a new example, something like that. And so you can read up on the issue, code up the solution to it, and then submit a pull request with your solution. We do have a learn guide for contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub. So we can help you out with that. We also have folks who are around throughout the week who are more than happy to help you out, whether you are trying to review or contribute your own code with a PR. If you're having trouble with any part of the process, like the actions or the pre-commit or version control or anything else, come say hi in the Discord and let us know what is holding you up. We will definitely, somebody will be there to help you out. We want everyone to be able to contribute in a way that works for them. And we had, of course, no updates in the last 7 days for libraries as well. So Blinka, I will tell you about next. Blinka is the compatibility layer for CircuitPython. This is a CPython library that makes it so that you can use all of those CircuitPython libraries that the last section was about on single board computers like Raspberry Pis and other similar devices, as well as with MicroPython devices. So Blinka allows you to take those libraries, use them on CPython and Raspberry Pis, as well as other MicroPython microcontrollers that do not support CircuitPython directly. Also, a relatively light week in Blinka, no pull requests merged. There are 14 open pull requests listed here. No issues open last week either or closed. And currently 85 issues open in the Blinka repo. And we are at 174 boards that support the Blinka compatibility layer right now. All right. With that, I will take the next timestamp and tell you about Hug Reports, our next section. Hug Reports is a chance to highlight folks in the CircuitPython community and beyond for doing awesome things. I will start, and then we'll go down the list of Hug Reports alphabetically or as they appear in the notes doc. If you're text only or missing the meeting, I'll read them for you when we get to you in the list. Otherwise, I'll call on you. So I will get us started. Like I said, first up for me, thanks to C. Grover for linking me to some cute TFT face graphics from an old Learn guide. And also thanks to Sophie Wong, which was the author of that guide, and I presume created these little graphics, which I used on a completely different project over the weekend. But it was very helpful to have some ready-made graphics to drop in, because I'm not a particularly good creative. Thanks also for me, thanks to Liz this week for encouraging me to pitch the Sensor Decryptor project as a Learn guide. That's what I'm working on for my next project, and it has been fun to expand it a bit further than just the fun little thing I threw together over a couple weekends ago. So next up, I will pass it over to Dan.
Okay, thanks to Mikey Sklar, who's been working on idiosyncrasies with SD card USB access, especially on Mac OS. So he's fixed some things, had a couple of bug fixes which improve the behavior, and also has been testing on multiple operating systems for right now. I know he just got a Windows machine running, so he can test on Windows as well. And thanks to Scott for a discussion we had about a difficult ESP32C6 bug, which I'll talk about in status updates.
All right, thank you, Dan. Next up is Scott.
Hello, hug to Chris Norris for making a PR to the core for adding support for audio I/O to the STM32F405.
Nice. All right. Thank you, Scott. And that is it for Hug Reports this week. So next up, I will tell you about status updates, our next section. Status updates is our time to tell folks what we're up to individually. Again, I'll get us started and we'll go through the list as they appear in the notes doc. When I call on you, take a couple minutes to tell us what you've been up to since the last meeting and what you'll be working on until the next meeting. If a discussion becomes too long for status updates, we can always bounce it down to in the weeds as needed. So I will take a timestamp. So last week I tested out the nightly build of Firefox, which has added support for web serial, although I'm not 100% sure if that's technically correct. I know there's a few different APIs, but in the newest versions of Firefox, they have added the serial API that Chrome and a couple other browsers have had for a while. And this is what enables the CircuitPython web installer. So I tested Firefox with that, and I'm happy to report that that is now working under the latest versions, which is super cool. While I was testing that, I found what turned out to be a completely unrelated sort of red herring problem, and I submitted a fix for that. That was over in one of our repos, the web firmware installer.js, which is the JavaScript library that the web installer uses. I submitted a fix for that so that it will complete the hard reset successfully now on devices that support it, like ESP32s, the plain one, not the S3s. I also started last week, started up the guide for my Sensor Locked Secrets project, which is, I think, what I referred to earlier, Sensor Decryptor. And I have added support now so that it can do a sequence of puzzles. The core idea of this project is encrypting a message or an image using readings from a sensor, like a light sensor or a GPS, or I'm going to be adding a temperature humidity sensor as well. So it before was just sort of one message. You could get the sensor right and it would decrypt it and you could see it. Now you can go through a series of puzzles. So you decrypt the first one and then you can start working on the second one and then you can start working on the third one after that, so on and so forth. So this is cool. You can make sort of like a little scavenger hunt style puzzle where you have to solve the first one in order to start up the second one and so on. I have also started tinkering and thinking about a thing sort of loosely termed an embodiment kit. This will be a thing that pairs a microcontroller with a handful of sensors and outputs, and it will add an interface that makes it easy for an LLM to integrate with this microcontroller. The idea is to give the LLM the ability to read the environment in the room, so like temperature sensor, light sensor, that sort of thing, as well as express things into the room. So it will have a little piezo buzzer that it can beep with. It will have a little vibration motor that it can vibrate, and it will have a TFT display which it can draw a face or whatever it wants to on. So I started thinking about this, and then I built out kind of an early version of the communication for that is based on Adafruit IO with MQTT over the weekend. So that is what I am up to. I will pass it over to Dan next.
All right, I released CircuitPython 10.3.0 Alpha 1 last week. So that was just so that we could have a development release labeled, and it's got some minor but useful bug fixes in it. And so now we have a development release on the circuitpython.org board pages. And then for several days, I was working on a kind of a difficult bug, which only showed up on ESP32C6. It looked like some networking bug, but it was actually caused by memcopy, which is a very general routine that's used to copy a lot of bytes from one place to another. And that was being used to build up a response in web workflow, which seemed to be why it seemed to be a web workflow or Wi-Fi bug, but it actually didn't really have anything to do with that. It just was because it was copying some read-only string to a read-write buffer, and it was not aligned on a 32-bit boundary. And this seems to be actually some kind of hardware bug in the RISC-V implementations on the Espressif chips. I've linked an issue, a fix that Espressif put in to ESP-IDF for this. I never saw an issue about it. Okay, Scott says it's the RISC-V ROM as opposed to a hardware bug. So anyway, this is fixed in ESP-IDF version 6 and probably in v554. That fix was probably backported to 554. We're running 553. So we hope this will be fixed. This should be fixed when we upgrade CircuitPython to ESP-IDF version 6. And that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Next up is Scott.
Hello. So I'm still working on the hardware in the loop board. I think the schematic is pretty much done, and I'll be heads down on routing, placing everything and then routing it together. I was worried about putting 5 volts on the I/O pins, and then on my stream, because I realized I had an old ESP32P4, I just connected it up to see what happened, and nothing did. So I think I was being a little too much of a worrywart. So that I think that's unblocked me there. Basically, it's okay to say don't do it, and if you forget to not do it, it's not the end of the world. You can remember and recover, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong about that. The original board I did, the P4 GPIO board, is done at JLC PCB, and it's scheduled to arrive on Friday. So once it comes, I'll be able to test it. It'll be good kind of as a first logic analyzer board because it just breaks out way more pins than we actually need for the logic analyzer. And then talking to Dan this morning about IDF6 update, it's been lingering because I have a stream of using hardware in the loop to test it. But Dan confirmed that the bug that he was looking at with the mem copy is fixed. And so we decided that we'd rather just get that checked in, even if it hasn't been tested super well, now that we have 10.2 out. So we'll get that in main. It'll go out in a 10.3 alpha, and then we can see what people think. I just updated my branch to 6.01, so I'll keep an eye on that to make sure everything's still building, and then mark it ready to go. And then the next thing that's on my radar for when I'm back in software land is updating the version of Zephyr that we're based on. Zephyr has had a release since we've updated last, and while we don't actually want to be on the release, once they release, they reopen the merge window, and they get a lot of new stuff that's kind of been backed up for the merge freeze. So there's some cool stuff in there. I know at least support for the new STM32C5 USB hardware is in there. And then I know Espressif is also working on Zephyr ESP32P4 support. So I'm interested in that as well. And so updating us to the newest Zephyr will get us closer to those things. So hardware in the loop heads down on, but then poking at least one other thing alongside that.
All right. Thank you, Scott. And that is it for status updates this week. Next up, we have In the Weeds. As a reminder, In the Weeds is an opportunity for more long-form discussions. These can either come out of status updates or be identified ahead of time. If you have any In the Weeds topics, be sure to add them to the notes doc as soon as you can, as soon as you think of them, essentially. That way we're not trying to wait around at the end for that to get filled in. We do have one, so I will pass the baton back over to Dan for In the Weeds.
Okay, this is like a discussion that I might have had with just Scott, but I think it's kind of maybe interesting enough to people that we might put it in the public record here. So this is about some time ago, Jeff Epler was working on a POSIX port, which was kind of a replacement for the Unix port, which is in the tree, CircuitPython tree. The Unix port came from MicroPython. It's used pretty much exclusively to run a bunch of tests. It's not really CircuitPython. It's missing a bunch of CircuitPython things. It's sort of hacked up to make it work well enough as CircuitPython, but it's not. It's more MicroPython oriented. So Jeff was trying to make a sort of a cleaner port that would run under Linux or some other POSIX thing, but Linux is obviously the main target, and thought that it would make it easy to be able to test things that are not in the current Unix port, like the supervisor module or some other things like that that aren't necessarily hardware related, but aren't part of MicroPython. So we didn't work on it because it was a lot of work, or Jeff didn't have time to finish it. It seems to me now that it would be much easier to work on this with the aid of an LLM to do a lot of the boilerplate work. This brings up, is this actually useful for testing? Because one thing that's been happening with the Zephyr port is that there's a native sim board, a simulator, which has a lot of tests which right now are sometimes duplicating what might be in the test directory. But it also, this native sim port might serve, or this board under Zephyr might serve as a replacement for the POSIX port. So I think the question is it useful to actually be useful to make this POSIX port work and then use it to run the ordinary tests that aren't hardware related? It might also be useful for some other purposes, maybe like just showing how CircuitPython works, maybe not necessarily as a substitute for Blinka, but maybe partly, I don't know, in some cases. So that's a question. It could be 32-bit versus 64-bit. We don't have any other 64-bit ports except for Broadcom right now, and Broadcom is not being worked on actively. So I'm just interested in opinions about whether it might be worth working on this POSIX port. It would not be part of Zephyr tree, but it could be used to run, it could be used as a new testing framework for most of the tests.
I'm all in on native sim.
Yeah.
And one is that I like that it's 32-bit because of the pointer packing that we do. It means that like we're consistent across everything that we use. Another nice thing about native sim is that when you add module support, you're adding it for not only native sim, but you're also adding it for other Zephyr boards. And then on top of that, if there's stuff that the native sim doesn't support, by adding it to native sim, we prepare ourselves for a future where Arduino and other things are also based on Zephyr. So the backends that we add to native sim for the POSIX environment can apply outside of CircuitPython as well, which I think is really, really beneficial. And then one other thing that native sim that has that POSIX does not is actually the BLE stuff that Nordic's done. So like we can actually do BLE simulations under native sim too. And there's no way we would ever do that sort of thing in a POSIX port.
Yeah, it wouldn't be realistic. Yeah, I mean, I think we could make a POSIX 32 port, but and choose the same object representation and stuff. Does native sim, is it simulating like a particular ARM chip?
It is not.
Okay.
It is much more like what the POSIX port would be doing, where like the actual code is just executing on the CPU.
Okay, so it doesn't, but so it does. So there's a Zephyr virtual CPU that uses POSIX under the covers to implement any file access, network or file access or something like that. Is that?
There's a couple different backends that you can set up for networking, for example. One is just POSIX stuff, and that's currently what we're using. Another one is like a network tap. So like some other lower level network interface into the Linux kernel that's hosted. There's not really a virtual CPU. It's more like you're actually just running a Zephyr thread on your CPU. And then like the low level thread switching and kernel timing APIs are stubbed out so that like time is virtual, not real. Although there is a flag that you can say like use real time. But like executing code doesn't actually take simulator time. It's just when you like delay or something, then your clock goes forward.
Okay. And so would it actually make sense to start running the CI tests that are currently under the test directory in native sim and even like not bothering to use eventually,
Yeah, you can't see my head nodding.
Okay.
But yes, I'm nodding along with you of like we need to get ourselves to a point where we have one test framework that is used across everything.
Right. So
and like I'm sure Damien would say that like the tests that they have set up for MicroPython are that. And maybe that's the way we go. But I don't know. I took the chance to like reimagine a bit with how the Zephyr tests are set up using PyTest and harnesses and things. The other thing we could think about is like how can we make the native sim build more POSIX build like where like can we statically link it, for example, to make sure that like it's easier to run across any Unix thing? I don't know. We are pushing the builds of them onto S3, and I know that TechTrick has gotten them where you can just like download the native sim build and then use it to like do library analysis. So one of my goals with the native sim work that I've done is like, I don't want 5 native sim builds. I want like, if we need to change functionality, like for example, it has the ability of like faking I2C devices, and like I want that all built in, and then I want a command line flag that tells me like either make it there or make it disappear, that sort of thing. Because I only really want one native sim build that I'm using for all my testing, and then I want to use command line flags to change its behavior for like, here's the flash image that you should be using and things like that.
Okay, so it would make sense. So we might even consider some tests that are not hardware specific, but are like supervisor tests. Like this was all driven by the fact that I wanted to test the floating point support that I added to supervisor get setting into something that could run automatically. And I was trying to figure out how the heck am I going to do that? Well, I can put it in native sim, but then the test is in native sim. It's like not in the general test directory. Maybe that doesn't really matter. Maybe it's just not important where it is.
They are run, right? So like we did those native sim tests are hooked up to GitHub Actions. You're right that they're separate, but they are at least run reliably, like regularly.
Right. They just happen to live. Like we could actually run. Oh, but does it run? So it runs when you say it's hooked in, you mean it's like running like Damien's tests on the native
No,
sim?
no, no. I'm just saying that like for every push,
Okay,
it is run.
right. So I think it would be interesting to run Damien's tests on native sim.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and we have to figure out like how to structure that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
And then we
and
could start
yeah,
putting stuff, the non-hardware stuff that's under Zephyr CP, we could just put somewhere in the test directory or something like that. I don't know.
right. Yeah, I think part of it is just like I am imagining a world where Zephyr is what we use for everything, and so like in the meantime we can just have it separate until we get to that point that we're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
really letting it go whole hog within CircuitPython.
Right, right. But
Um,
since we always want to inherit Damien's MicroPython tests, there will be a test directory, and we'll be wanting to run those under native sim. So maybe I'll even see if
yeah,
that's possible. Not necessarily right away, but like
I'm
like add something to the CI or to make file that runs those tests instead of
yeah,
them running under ports Unix, under running them under ports
right,
Zephyr CP native
right,
sim. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And if we did want to get closer to CPU emulation, like Zephyr does have support for like QEMU, where like
Okay.
QEMU is actually trying to do more. I don't think it's cycle accurate, which I kind of wish it was. But I think it is like you build it for ARM and then it executes on x86 or x64 or whatever.
Right.
Like if you're using QEMU. But yeah, the nice thing is that the layer, like the common HAL layer between CircuitPython APIs and Zephyr, like that doesn't change.
Mhm.
You may need to introduce like the Zephyr side of things, but that's like a shared Zephyr side.
Yeah.
For example, like I modified our branch of Zephyr has support for like I2S out using libstdl, which
Uh-huh.
is not upstreamed.
Okay.
But like I'd rather put the work there because then that like I2S out stuff we could theoretically use for like Arduino tests.
That makes sense. I mean,
But I think there is a
MicroPython
world where we want to do Arduino Zephyr too, which Arduino itself is actually Zephyr based too.
now, yeah, yeah, the latest, and there's also a QEMU port under MicroPython, but I don't know if they run the tests on it or not. So
I bet they do, but
yeah,
again,
I
like
would think
I don't want to maintain a separate one.
no, I don't either. No,
um,
it's just there's parallels to what you're saying in the MicroPython world. I think.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like Damien is much better about testing than I ever that we've ever been. Um, so yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I would
All
say
right.
like I would not introduce a new port for this.
Okay.
Like we've
All right.
already known that like Unix port is like too weird anyway. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, I'd rather go native sim because then we're aligning with stuff that we can run on hardware as well.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Right. Ultimately, we could run. You might even catch like compiler bugs or something. Like, oh, there's an ARM compiler bug or there's a RISC-V compiler bug that causes
Yes.
something to
Yeah, we do
fail.
QEMU stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the
Mm-hmm.
discussion.
All right. Yeah, thanks both to Dan and Scott for that. And that was our only In the Weeds topic, so we will move on to wrap up. This has been CircuitPython Weekly Meeting for May the 4th, 2026. Thanks to everyone who participated. If you want to help support Adafruit and CircuitPython, and those of us that work on CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from the Adafruit shop at adafruit.com. The video of this meeting will be released on YouTube at youtube.com/Adafruit, and the podcast will be made available on major podcast services. It will also get featured in the Python for Microcontrollers newsletter. You should visit adafruitdaily.com in order to subscribe to that. The next meeting will be held next Monday at the usual time. That's the May 11th, the usual time being 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time, U.S., let's see here. The meeting, as always, will be held on the Adafruit Discord, which you can join by going to adafru.it/discord. And as a reminder, if you'd like to get notified about any changes to the upcoming day or time, you can ask to be added to the CircuitPythonistas role on Discord. Thanks, everyone who participated. We hope to see you all next week.